Welcome everybody to Coffee with Chauwei. So people ask me why is it sometimes late night with Chauwei and sometimes coffee with Chauwei. I guess it just depends on when I have time to do videos. So today we're going to answer the question that was the number one topic that was submitted when we asked people what would you like Chauwei to talk about. And the question is, how did you get to IBD bulge? So this says a lot about the audience that I've been attracting, so generally younger people and probably a number of my interns. And so I'm going to talk about how I got to bulge IBD. So I'm class of 2002, so that's like a long time ago. And I think that time period is somewhat similar to what we're experiencing now, right? So the job economy is not great, and it's hard to get into IBD. So if for those who can't remember what it was like back then, 2002 would mean that I started looking for a full-time job right after 9/11 happened. And since I was studying in the US, I naturally wanted to work in New York, but then because of what happened, banks were not really recruiting, and even if they were, it was pretty hard for a non-US citizen to get a position in IBD. So before I started my job recruiting season, I was still pretty optimistic. So after all, I'm from Wharton, I have a dual degree, I'm summa cum laude, I'm like Dean's List all 4 years, I have a minor in math. So I thought I was pretty well qualified. So when I submitted my resumes, probably submitted like 1,000 resumes, right? And I was called back for interviews for 5, a grand total of 5. And I didn't even make it to second round for Jeffries. So I was pretty disappointed. But instead of saying that, hey, I'm not going to pursue the role that I wanted to get into, I started to think which other cities were not affected by 9/11 and which cities could hire me. So at that time, Singapore wasn't the financial hub it is today, and so I didn't really consider coming back to Singapore. But then I thought, okay, Japan is also a big city and also a financial hub on its own. Let me try to get a job there. So the first advice that I wanted to give people would be to look beyond what you're comfortable with, right? Don't just say, hey, I definitely just want to work in Singapore, or I definitely just want to work in Hong Kong. Try to look beyond your comfort zone and see where the demand is from, right? So you're the supply, that you need to look for where the demand is. Of course, people will be like saying that, oh, I'm not like qualified, or I'm not comfortable to move somewhere far away, or I want to continue to stay at home and eat my mom's home cooking, or I have a girlfriend here. In times like this, maybe you can't really be very choosy or choose to be remain in your comfort zone. So that's point number 1. So point number 2 is, how do you stand out among the pile of resumes? So in times when companies aren't really looking to fill a lot of positions, there's probably like 1 or 2 slots that's available. So when I joined UBS Tokyo IBD, I was actually one of only 2 analysts that year, and the other analysts actually left within 3 months of being hired. So for all practical purposes, I was the only analyst that year. So my point is that people are really trying to not hire as many people, or maybe they don't have the budget to hire as many people. So they're really trying to look for one person to fill like at least like 3 people's roles. So what I did to increase my chances of getting picked was to showcase that I speak 3 languages. So naturally English, and I also speak Mandarin, and I said I was fluent in Japanese. Actually, at that time I wasn't really fluent in Japanese, and we'll get to that later. But then I still said that I was fluent, and so the key is not to say you should lie away to get a job, but then there are always ways to improve yourself such that it doesn't remain a lie. So I really did become fluent in Japanese after a couple of months in Japan. So that's point number 2, right? Make yourself useful. It's like people would rather hire a Swiss Army knife that has like multiple talents rather than have a specialized like sushi knife where you can only like cut sushi, especially in times when they have limited headcount. So point number 3 is in IBD you work like super long hours. So naturally the recruiter wants to hire somebody who is interesting and good to hang out with at say 2 a.m. right? So during interviews you shouldn't come out as being super arrogant, oh I know it all, because no one wants to hang out with anybody like that. And if you're kind of a boring person, that's also not great, because people get really cranky at 2, 3 a.m. and there are a lot of times when you have to work those hours. So I think what got me the job at UBS Tokyo, and you've got to imagine, like, I'm fighting against all these native Japanese, and there are plenty of Japanese who can speak English as well. So being bilingual wasn't that much of an advantage. Yes, being able to speak Mandarin fluently was a real advantage, but it wasn't. I didn't think that was enough to tip me over, because when I met with the other interview candidates on Super Saturdays, there are people who are equally accomplished. They're also from Ivy League schools. I'm guessing their grades are equally as good. But I think what got me the job was that I said my hobby was reading manga. And for those who don't know, manga is Japanese comics. And I got so good at it that I mastered the Japanese language, which is actually true. And so, like, to this day, I still speak Japanese a little funnily because I'm like a manga character, and maybe I even like move and talk a little bit like those characters. So what does this mean, right? So I'm not saying that hey, everybody go out to learn how to read manga or behave like a manga character, but it's to show passion in something. So a lot of websites or guidebooks talk about how to score that IBD position, right? And they say you must like be able to like memorize black shows or like solve these fit questions or even some IQ questions. I think being proficient in finance or math is given. If you're not even good at that, then you shouldn't apply. But what makes people stand out is being passionate about something that you will try really hard and excel at it. So that's why a lot of IBD units would hire sports people. At least in New York, that's what they do, because they show dedication and the ability to then persevere and become really good at what you're doing. So it doesn't have to be something super noble like crew or playing chess, right? So as I have demonstrated, I'm a real life example of how I told the recruiters that I am super good at reading manga and watching anime, and that got me my job. And I'm pretty sure that is one of the deciding factors, because when I first joined the firm, somewhat everyone knew that I was like super into manga. So I think that, at least that was what people talked about. So anyway, so those are my 3 tips to getting an IBD bulge position in a difficult job environment. Hopefully this is helpful.